Greetings, Taco Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all my final Game of Thrones episode review right here on Otaku Assemble Weekly. And as always, here to bring you the latest in this week's Game of Thrones episode reviews. And this is my review of the Season 3 finale, Season 3, Episode 10, entitled Mhysa, or I believe that's how you pronounce it. So, general thoughts on this week's episode, general thoughts on the Season 3 finale. I thought it was a decent enough episode. I thought it was a fair enough finale. And for the most part, I thought that this episode, in terms of concluding this season, I thought this was more of a wrap-up sort of finale than a setup or a mixture of the two. And what I mean is this. I've noticed with a lot of television series, especially those that have overarching stories, that the finale for the most part will either be setup, where they're setting everything up for the next season, wrap up, where they're just wrapping up everything in that season and then leaving it open for next season, or it'll be a mix of the two. And for the most part, Game of Thrones has typically done both. They've done a little bit of both. So for an example, like Season 1, I would say concluded with a little bit of both. Season 2, I think, was much more setup than wrap up. And so with Season 3, I feel like this one is more wrap up than setup, or a mix of both. And that's because you had a lot of subplots that kind of got concluded in this episode. So a couple of examples. Okay, well, Robb, Catelyn, and Jon's subplots were wrapped up. Well, no, Jon's was wrapped up this one. I take that back. Robb and Catelyn's was wrapped up last episode. Jon's was wrapped up. His subplot being his time with the wildlings. That was wrapped up. That was wrapped up in this episode. Sam and Gilly's, quest home. That was wrapped up in this episode. Jaime's quest home. That was wrapped up in this episode. Daenerys and her conquering of yokai, that was wrapped up in this episode. Let's see. What was another one? Oh, Gendry. His little subplot, that was wrapped up in this episode. So right there, that's about what? 6 subplots that got wrapped up in with this by the end of this season. Whereas your setups would be more of, let me see. Okay, Theon, his subplot, that's set up. Bran's is set up. Well, Theon's is going to be a continuation of his subplot in this season, whereas Bran's is kind of going to be branching off into more of I guess you could say, self-motivated, character-driven subplot. I can't say solo mission because he's not by himself, but Bran's, his quest north of the wall now has so much more to do with him personally than with him and his brother, or him trying to reconnect with family, or anything else that's been going on in the story so far. It's more about him. So that's kind of a setup going into his own thing. Now, Arya's, the funny thing is neither, in my opinion. I don't think it's wrap up and I don't think it's setup, because we know that her quest to reunite with Robb, of course, that didn't happen, but we don't know what her journey, her traveling with the Hound is going to lead up to. So that's why I say it's neither. It's neither setup nor wrap up. It's more like just left open for whatever they want to do with that. And I'm trying to think, there was another one that was set up, and I can't remember what it was. Oh, Stannis and Davos, their story, I think is setting up for something, but I don't know what it is. And I'm gonna talk about that in a bit more detail later in the review. So, taking into consideration the two lists I've kind of compiled here, you can see why I say that the finale was more wrap up than setup. So, thoughts on a couple of things in this week's episode. Now, I don't really have any thoughts on what's been going on in King's Landing. That's just because everything that's happened up to this date, up to this point so far, has pretty much, I'm talking about strictly with the cast in King's Landing, has pretty much gone the way I figured it would. Like I said, the only surprise was Tyrion and Sansa's wedding, the fact that it actually happened, because I thought he was going to find a way out of it. But remember, that was, I commented on that in last week's review, referring back to episode 8. So, the only real thing that I have to comment on as far as like the King's Landing cast is the fact that I didn't realize until I saw the scene between Varys and Shay how little we actually saw Varys this season. Think about it. Varys was only really in I think 3 episodes in the first half of the season. 3, maybe 4. But he only got like a considerable amount of screen time in only like 3 episodes in the first half, in the first 5 episodes. So it wasn't until like I saw that conversation, I was like, damn, dude, like it's been a while since we've seen Varys. And then I started thinking, I'm like, yeah, we didn't really get to see him that much this season. Not really, especially after Littlefinger left. After Littlefinger left, that's when we stopped seeing Varys too. So I also think that we didn't really get enough of the relationship between Tyrion and Shay this season. Outside of like that jealous bickering, that's pretty much all we got. Which once again, if you look back at the first 2 seasons, when you take in consideration season 1 was establishing the relationship and season 2 was illustrating the dangers of their relationship, season 3 was more of just, it was like not secret admirers, secret lovers. I guess that's the term you could use for it. Hell, it wasn't even like, it wasn't even like 2 characters having an affair, because I don't think we ever even saw them sleep together this season. We just didn't get enough of their relationship this season. Now that the season's over and I'm actually able to like look back at it, it's like, wow. So those are pretty much my only thoughts on as far as like what's going on in King's Landing. And like I said, so moving away from King's Landing, just to comment on the Arya Hound thing, it's like I said, I don't know where that's supposed to lead. So I don't like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know where that's gonna lead. I will say though, I don't like how cold Arya's become. I really think from here on out in the story, we're gonna get a different Arya. Now, of course, she's always been the more tomboyish, adventuring type, and we know she's always had a thing for fighting and whatnot. But that's not even that gutsy sort of don't take shit from nobody type thing that we know and love from Arya. That's not even what we're getting anymore. We're getting just like cold, emotionless. Except other than anger. But yeah, I don't like what's happening to Arya. In all honesty, I don't. So that's that. It's just that I don't like how Arya is becoming jaded and cynical and tainted by what's been going on. I don't like that. So let me see. What else did I want to let me see. Oh, let me talk about Theon's subplot right quick. Because I will say it's both, in my opinion, the weakest one of the season, but also the most disappointing one. And disappointing on so many levels. Okay, so first off, now that we know what has happened to Theon, now that we know where he is and what's been going on, in all honesty, I just think it was poorly done. I've mentioned before, I've talked about Theon's subplot before this season, about my frustrations with it, and I'll say the same thing in regards to Jon and Dany's subplots from last season, and it's the same thing. Nothing happened other than Theon getting tortured. That's the only thing that we can take away from his subplot this season, is that he was tortured, that Balin was supposed to pull out of the north in return for Theon being brought home, and he turned down the deal, and so Theon's being tortured. My problem with that is this: the subplot leaves very little story progression, and instead what you did is you gave us a bunch of filler. Whether or not it's canon, whether or not these scenes are actually canon, meaning if they're in the books or not, that's not what I mean when I say filler. When I say filler, I mean presenting us with material just to fill in the space and to meet your time quota for an episode. We got all these scenes with Theon being tortured throughout the entire season, and in all honesty, we could have done without it. You didn't need it. And I really don't know what to chalk that up to. I don't know if it's supposed to be because I don't know if it's supposed to be just shock value and pandering. I don't know if it's supposed to be somehow cathartic for the audience to see Theon suffer because of all the things he did last season. I don't know what the intent is behind those scenes. I'm just saying that because of the slow progression, we could have done without it. And in all honesty, I would have much rather something like we've gotten this in the second half of the season. Or maybe we saw it like in the first 2 episodes and then we don't see it again until episode 8 or episode 10. You see what I'm saying? Because the only thing I can take away from those scenes being where they are placed throughout the season is that it's supposed to illustrate how long Theon's actually been captive. That's the only thing I'm getting from it. That we had to see it from the beginning of the season so we know he's been there the entire time. But then again, you would have gotten the same thing across if we would have found out about Yara's decision in this episode, and then next season see her actually go and rescue him, and then we would have known, oh, he's been there the entire time. The other disappointing thing is, that's Ramsay Snow? Where's the rest of them? And let me go into a little bit detail about this. Last season, when season 2 concluded, I started hearing whispers of the character of Ramsay Snow, and how I was reading how like fans were excited because this was the season when Ramsay Snow gets introduced. And so I remember I was talking with one of my friends, and he said the same thing. He made this comment that suggested like Ramsay Snow was a big deal. And so my expectations for the character were actually kind of high. And then I remember reading an article about the casting call for Ramsay Snow too. And actually, I'm kind of surprised because one of the actors who was in the running, actually, you know, a good-looking fellow, I think he was an Irish actor, maybe, a Welsh actor. I think he was. Anyway, but you know, he looked it good. And so I'm looking at the actor and I'm like, okay, this character might look kind of cool. And then to find out, so that was Lord Bolton's bastard the entire time. That was Ramsay Snow? And it's like, wow. I gotta tell you, I don't know what all the hoopla was about. Oh man, Ramsay's coming. I don't know what that was about. He's a sadistic Sociopath. I don't see the excitement. I don't see it. What was it? That was really disappointing. Especially you all will remember when I was talking about, when I think it was the season 2 finale when we saw Winterfell up in smoke and stuff. I was like, oh man, maybe Ramsay, brought his guys in there and, wrecked shit and decided to take Winterfell from Robb or whatever. And that could very well be what happened. But what I'm saying is, what we got for Ramsay Snow was the complete opposite of what I was expecting. I was expecting somebody like, I don't want to say Great John Second Coming, but definitely I was looking for, this like no-name, low-key northern conqueror that was, going to kind of fill in that void in the north. And if that's who we're supposed to be getting, I gotta tell you, nah, I'm sorry, y'all lost me on that one. I'm not picking up what you're throwing down. No, I'm sorry. Not. Highly disappointed in that. But like I said, that's just because I guess the hype misled me. Let's see. I'm glad that we finally found out. I mean, they really were going to have to explain this at some point in time, but I'm glad that we finally heard it from the horse's mouth. What exactly Lord Bolton and Walder Frey, what they were getting out of setting up the Red Wedding, because we knew they were all in cahoots last week, but they aren't just going to, agree to those terms without getting something for it. So at least we finally found out what it was they were getting from it. And I actually thought it was kind of smart how Frey decided to keep what's Robb's uncle name? I can't remember his name, but pretty much the Lord of Riverrun, if you will. I thought it was actually smart that Frey decided to keep him alive, because you got to remember, as long as he's alive, all of Riverrun's bannermen, all of the lords of the Riverlands, they don't really have much reason to, or at least they wouldn't have another reason to go against Walder Frey. You see what I'm saying? As long as Frey keeps Robb's uncle alive, then that's a reason to keep the other lords at bay. But I don't think that's going to happen. I suspect that since we know Blackfish, Cat's uncle, I suspect that since we know he's still alive, I think he's going to be the one to rally the rest of the Riverlands against the Freys. Or at least, I mean, that's what would make the most sense. If you're talking about what's the more likely course of action, that would make sense. But then again, I mean, that's really not going to be much different than what's going on in the rest of Westeros. I mean, that's just going to be a little civil war amongst the Riverlands. So, I mean, it's happening everywhere else. I don't see why not. Let me see. I'm going to talk about Stannis, then comment on Dany, and then that's going to wrap this up. So, Stannis, and what's going on, what's going on with that? I'm actually surprised how that ended, and I don't know what to make of it. Does this mean that Stannis is actually heeding the call from the Night's Watch? That perhaps Stannis is the first one in all of the Seven Kingdoms to actually take that message seriously? I don't know. Does this mean that he's going to, mobilize an army and head north? I mean, I don't know what this means. I will say though, out of all the subplots out of all the little subplots we've seen illustrated in this week's episode, in the finale, I think this is the most interesting one to me. Cause I mean, the fact that for once Davos did not get punished for doing the right thing. Because I gotta tell you, that's one of my biggest complaints about this show is I'm tired of characters getting punished for doing the right thing. And so for once, that didn't happen to Davos. Thank God. But then again, it's not because there was any it's not because there were any like confirmation, anything affirming to say yes, you were right. And I'm giving you this credit. It's more of, no, we're going to keep you alive because we need you. And I'm like, really? But hey, I was like, yo, Davos, dude. I mean, look, Stannis was about to kill you. You might as well take that shit and run with it, dude. Because Stannis was going to kill you. And I knew when he set Gendry free, I'm like, dude, Stannis is going to kill him. But, so yeah, I will say that's the most interesting thing because I don't know what it means. I tell you what I hope it doesn't mean. I hope what this doesn't mean is that Stannis, like this is going to kind of push Stannis to hurry up and take the Iron Throne so that he can unite the Seven Kingdoms against the White Walkers. I hope that's not what it means because they've said it multiple times throughout the series, even combined. The Seven Kingdoms would not be enough to defeat the White Walkers. So I really hope that's not what it is. Because in all honesty, at that point, it just really is foolhardy. I mean, hell, Stannis will fuck around and lose the majority of his forces before he can even get anywhere close to the Iron Throne. It'd be Blackwater all over again. Maybe even worse because of all the other houses that have united since last season. And then my final thoughts on the episode, Dany. Now, I mean, for the most part, it was a nice moment, a nice scene to end the episode on, a good note, to end it on kind of a high note. But I will say, man, Dany so far is the only one whose story is actually working out for her right now. But then again, it's not like I've made the argument that, oh man, one of my biggest complaints about the show is that, fucked up shit just happens to good people too often. And people like to say, well, what about Dany? She's doing good and stuff. And I always say, it's like, yeah, but that's because her story was fucked up from Jump Street. Her season 1 couldn't really get much worse. You know what I'm saying? So now she's just finally starting to reap the benefits. And I'm glad that that's still going. But what's next? That's my only thing. I like, though, that she does have a team. Not just the army. And not just, the respect of the slaves in Yokai. I'm not talking about that. The fact that she actually has a team, that it's not just her and Jorah anymore. Her, Jorah, Barristan, what's the other boy's name? Is it Diario? I think it is. Grey Worm. I think that's his name. And then homegirl, her advisor, like she actually has like a main, like a cabinet. She has a small council now. And that's my favorite part of Dany's forces. It's her little cabinet. They're cool. So yeah, so all that being said, final thoughts on the season as a whole. It was a decent enough season. Is it my least? No. It's not even my least favorite. No, wait. I take that back. No. Yeah. This would probably be my least favorite season, which I know a lot of people will think is weird because season 2, some people will say that it's kind of slow, but for me, season 2 had, a lot. They still had characters that I liked, and they still had a lot of possibilities in season 2, whereas season 3 was just, yeah, season 3 was just season 3. So, yeah. With that being said, that's just gonna wrap up this Game of Thrones episode review, which will be my final Game of Thrones episode review. I want to take this time to thank you all for joining me again this week. Also, thank you all who have been following my reviews up to this point. I also want to do a huge thank you to those of you who in the past week have been writing me and leaving me comments and stuff like that. I was actually surprised by how much positive feedback I actually got. Now, granted, the general consensus across the board was that, a lot of you all are disappointed that I'm ending this segment, but at the same time, the majority of you stated in your comments and in your messages and in your letters that you understand why I'm doing it and respect my decision. And that means a lot, because it's not always as simple as like, people just agree with you, but to understand and to respect the decision despite that that they wouldn't prefer that. To me, that just means much more. That has so much more weight to it. That constituency, that mutual understanding just has so much more weight to it. So I was actually surprised by that, and I was kind of touched by it. And I know a lot of you all are wondering if I'm going to continue watching the show. And I'll be honest with you, as of right now, no. But a lot can change in 10 months. So I'm keeping what I'm saying is this. I'm going to give you all a slow yes instead of a fast no. I'm leaving the possibility to keep following the show open. I'm leaving it open if my opinion changes within the next 10 months, but I will not be reviewing it. If I do decide to continue it, I still won't be reviewing it. I think if anything else, I think I probably do need to just maybe it'll be funner to just go back to the way it was. Granted, I've been reviewing the show since Jump, but I actually do kind of miss where I used to watch it without a critical eye. And I also kind of miss the fact that I was the only one watching it, like, in my social circles. And it was kind of cool because it was like a secret that I was the only one in on. And then, season 2, everyone else is just coming up to speed. And it's like, I was in on it first kind of thing. I kind of miss that feeling, And I get that with some of my other shows. But, Game of Thrones, I haven't felt like that since season 1. And I kind of miss that feeling. So, all in all, but with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, signing off for the final time on the Game of Thrones review. And in the words of the Night Watch, and now my watch has ended. Peace.